The conference room on Viridian 7 space station was massive. The ceiling stretched so high that Ji-won could barely see it. Giant windows showed the stars outside, bright and endless. She sat at the long table with her team of 5 humans. Around them sat representatives from 20 different alien species. Ji-won wore a simple black suit. Her hair was tied back neatly. She had prepared for this meeting for 6 months. Earth had sent her because she was patient and smart. She spoke 4 alien languages. She understood how to be polite to different cultures. But none of that seemed to matter here. Across the table sat the Thraxian delegates. They were huge creatures nearly 3 meters tall with thick armor-like skin that was dark red. Their eyes were small and yellow. The leader, called Commander. Voth had not looked at Ji-won once during the entire first day. When he spoke only to the other powerful species in the room. Next to the Thraxians sat the Quarren. They looked more like humans, but their skin was pale blue and they had no hair at all. Their leader, Counselor Rena, smiled constantly, but her smile was cold. She spoke in a sweet voice that made Ji-won feel uncomfortable. This was the 3rd day of the summit. Earth had come to discuss trade routes and protection agreements. Human ships were new to this part of space. They wanted to make friends, to learn, to share knowledge. Ji-won had brought proposals that would help everyone. Fair trade, shared defense, cultural exchange. But every time she spoke, someone interrupted her. Ambassador Ji-won, she had said on the first day, standing up with her papers ready. Earth proposes a mutual defense pact that would— Sit down, human, Commander Voth had said without even turning his head. Your species has been in space for less than 100 years. You have nothing to offer this council. Ji-won had sat down. She had stayed calm. She tried again in the afternoon. The Quarren had been worse. Counselor Rena let Ji-won speak for almost 5 minutes before interrupting. How charming, Rena had said, her cold smile growing wider. The humans think they are our equals. Commander Voth, should we tell them how things really work? The other species had laughed. Not all of them, but enough. Ji-won had felt her face grow hot, but she kept her expression neutral. On the second day, Ji-won changed her approach. She brought data and charts. She showed how human technology could help with medical research. She explained how Earth's agricultural methods could feed hungry colonies. She spoke about human art, music, and literature. The Thraxians talked over her. They discussed military campaigns as if she was not there. The Quarren checked their data pads and whispered to each other, giggling. There was one alien who seemed different. Her name was Hee-jin. She had taken a human name to honor a diplomat she once met. She was from the Velkan species, a group of thin, graceful beings with silver skin and large dark eyes. The Velkans were neutral observers at the council. They did not vote, but they witnessed everything. Hee-jin watched Ji-won carefully. When their eyes met, Hee-jin gave a small, sad nod. Now it was the 3rd day. The morning session had been the worst yet. Ji-won had asked to present Earth's final proposal. Commander Voth had laughed, actually laughed, a deep, rumbling sound that shook the table. Little human, he said, finally looking directly at her. Let me explain reality to you. Your planet is small. Your ships are weak. Your weapons are primitive. You use chemical rockets and metal bullets like children playing war. The only reason we let you come to this summit is because we find you amusing. Counselor Rena added, We have been traveling the stars for 10,000 years, human. Your species was living in caves when we built our first empire. Know your place. Ji-won's assistant, a young man named Taemin, started to stand up. His face was red with anger. Ji-won put a hand on his arm and shook her head gently. Taemin sat back down, his jaw tight. The afternoon session was about territory. The Thraxians wanted to expand into 3 systems near Earth's colonies. When Ji-won objected, explaining that human families lived there, Commander Voth waved his large hand dismissively. Move them, he said, or we will move them for you. Those are independent human worlds, Ji-won said quietly. We have settlements there. Children are born there. It is our home. Then it will become our home, Voth replied. This council recognizes Thraxian authority over those systems. Does anyone object? Silence filled the room. Not one species spoke up for Earth. The vote passed. Just like that, 3 human worlds were given away. Jiwan looked down at her papers. She had written so many proposals. She had hoped for so much. She believed that different species could work together, respect each other, build something good. She had been wrong. Councillor Rena was speaking now, explaining how the Quarren would control all trade routes near Earth space. Human ships would need permission to travel. They would pay taxes. They would follow Quarren laws, even in their own territory. This is slavery, Taemin whispered to Jiwan. We have to fight this. Jiwan did not answer. She was thinking. She was remembering her instructions from Earth's government. She had been told to try peace first, always peace first. But she had also been told if they will not listen, if they will not respect us, then come home. She stood up slowly. The room gradually became quiet. Even Commander Voth stopped talking. Ambassador Jiwan, Rena said with that cold smile. Do you have something to say? Another amusing proposal, perhaps? Jiwan began gathering her papers. She stacked them neatly. She picked up her datapad and turned it off. Around her, her team watched with wide eyes. Ambassador, Taemin whispered. What are you doing? Jiwan looked at Commander Voth, then at Councillor Rena. Then she let her gaze move slowly across every species in the room. Some looked confused. Some looked amused. Hyejin looked worried. We came here in good faith, Jiwan said. Her voice was calm and clear. We offered friendship. We offered partnership. We asked only for respect. She picked up her bag and put her papers inside. You have made your position clear, she continued. You see us as children, as primitives, as nothing. Commander Voth laughed again. Finally, the human understands. Jiwan turned and walked toward the door. Her team quickly gathered their things and followed her. Taemin looked back at the aliens with anger in his eyes, but he kept walking. Where are you going? Rena called out. The summit is not over, you cannot just leave. Jiwan stopped at the doorway. She looked back one last time. Yes, she said simply. We can. The door closed behind the human delegation. In the conference room, confused voices rose. Some aliens laughed, others looked uncertain. Commander Voth stood up and declared, Good riddance, now we can conduct real business. But Hyejin did not laugh. She stared at the closed door. She had studied human history. She knew about their wars. She knew about their survival on a harsh, dangerous planet. She knew that humans had a saying, speak softly and carry a big stick. The humans had been speaking softly for 3 days. Hyejin wondered what kind of stick they were carrying. She stood up and left the room. She needed to send a message. She needed to warn someone. But as she walked through the station's corridors, she wondered, would anyone listen to her either? Outside the station, the human ships were already preparing to leave. The Thraxian invasion fleet hung in space above the human colony world of New Sol. 50 warships, each one massive and powerful. Their shields glowed with a faint blue light. Their plasma cannons could destroy cities. They were the pride of the Thraxian military. Commander Voth stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Destroyer's Fist. He looked at the planet below with satisfaction. In 3 days, his forces had taken all 3 human systems without firing a single shot. Now he would establish Thraxian law. Human survivors would work for the Empire or leave. Send landing forces, he ordered. 10,000 soldiers to the main city. Show these humans what true power looks like. His officers obeyed. Transport ships began launching from the fleet. That was when the first railgun round hit. It came from the dark, from a region of space the Thraxians had scanned and marked as empty. The projectile was simple, a solid tungsten rod 3 meters long moving at a significant fraction of light speed. It had no engine, no guidance system after launch. It was just mass and velocity. It punched through the shields of a Thraxian cruiser like they were not there. The ship exploded, torn apart by the kinetic energy. What? Voth started to say, but then 3 more rounds hit. 3 more ships died. Alarms screamed across the fleet. Shields went to maximum power. Weapons crews searched for targets. Then the human fleet appeared. They came from multiple directions, emerging from slipspace in perfect coordination. 20 human warships smaller than Thraxian vessels but moving fast. So fast. They accelerated at rates that should have killed their crews, pulling maneuvers that seemed impossible. Voth did not understand. Those acceleration forces would turn most species into paste. He did not know that humans evolved on Earth, a high-gravity world. Human bones were dense. Human hearts were strong. Human bodies could withstand forces that would kill gentler species. Every human soldier went through training that pushed their bodies to the absolute limit. When human ships pulled 10G turns, their crews survived. When they accelerated hard enough to cross a star system in hours, their pilots endured. The human fleet commander was Admiral Minho himself. He sat in the command chair of the ESS Retribution, watching the tactical display with calm eyes. All ships, Alpha formation, he ordered. Target their command vessels first. Fire at will. The human ships opened fire. Railguns spoke, sending solid projectiles across the void. The Thraxians had developed their shields to stop energy weapons. Plasma, lasers, particle beams. Their technology was thousands of years old, refined and perfected. But humans used kinetic weapons. Old technology. Primitive, the aliens called it. Just metal moving really fast. Metal that punched through advanced shields like paper. 5 more Thraxian ships exploded. The fleet tried to return fire, but the human vessels were too fast, too maneuverable. They did not fight like other species. They did not hold formation and exchange fire. They moved like fighters, like wolves hunting, each ship covering the others, constantly moving, never staying still. On the destroyer's fist, Voth grabbed his tactical officer. How are they doing this? Those ships are too small to generate that much power. The officer checked his instruments, his hands shaking. Sir, they're reactors. They are running hot. Much hotter than safe operational levels. They are overcharging everything, engines, weapons, shields. If they keep this up, their own ships will tear themselves apart. Voth understood then. The humans were willing to destroy their own ships if it meant destroying the enemy. They fought with a desperation, a fury that no rational species would use, but humans were not always rational. Not in war. Captain Daehyun's ship, the Indomitable, took a direct hit from a plasma cannon. The shields held, but barely. Alarms rang across the bridge. Shield generators at 30%, Unji reported. Hull breach on deck 7. Seal it, Daehyun ordered. All power to forward guns. Get me a firing solution on that flagship. Sir, if we divert power from shields, do it, Daehyun said calmly. Yunji obeyed. The Indomitable's main railgun charged. The ship shuddered as the weapon fired, sending a massive projectile toward the destroyer's fist. The round hit the Thraxian flagship's engine section. The ship did not explode, it was too well armored, but it was crippled. The massive vessel began to drift, its engines offline. Target destroyed, the weapons officer reported. Enemy flagship is disabled. Daehyun allowed himself a small smile. Then he said, next target. Keep moving. The battle lasted 4 hours. The Thraxians fought hard. They had more ships, bigger ships, better technology, but they could not adapt fast enough. They fought the way they had always fought, using tactics that worked against other species. Humans did not fight like other species. Human pilots took risks that seemed suicidal. Human captains made decisions that seemed insane. And it worked. One by one, Thraxian ships fell. Some exploded. Some were crippled and left drifting. Some tried to retreat, only to be hunted down by faster human vessels. When it was over, only 15 Thraxian ships remained out of 50. They ran, jumping into slipspace, heading back toward their empire's core systems. Admiral Minho let them go. He wanted survivors. He wanted them to tell others what happened here. The human fleet had lost 3 ships, damaged 7 more. But they won. They held the system. On his ship, Minho opened a channel to all human vessels. Well done, he said simply. Begin rescue operations for any survivors, ours and theirs. In the wreckage of the destroyer's fist, Commander Voth was still alive. His ship had been torn apart, but the command section survived. He floated in 0 gravity, his armor keeping him alive in the vacuum. Through his helmet, he saw a human rescue ship approaching. He expected death, expected execution. That was what the Thraxians would do to defeated enemies. Instead, human soldiers in spacesuits pulled him from the wreckage. They brought him aboard their ship. They took him to a medical bay and treated his injuries. No one hurt him. No one mocked him. A human medic, a young woman named Sora, worked on his wounds. She did not speak his language, but she worked carefully, professionally. Voth did not understand. "Why?" he managed to say in broken common language. "Why help enemy?" Sora looked at him. "Because that is what civilized beings do," she said quietly. Voth had nothing to say to that. News of the battle spread across the galaxy faster than light. The Thraxian Empire was in shock. They had lost a fleet. Not damaged, not delayed, destroyed. By humans. By the species they called primitive. On Viridian 7, the Galactic Council held an emergency meeting. Counselor Rena stood before the assembly, her cold smile gone. She looked frightened. "The humans have committed an act of war," she said. "They have destroyed a Thraxian fleet unprovoked. This cannot stand. The Quarren Collective proposes immediate military action." "We must show these barbarians unprovoked?" a voice interrupted. Hyejin stood. She had recordings transmitted from the human systems. She played them for the council. The recordings showed Thraxian ships entering human space. They showed the aliens claiming human worlds. They showed Voth ordering landing forces preparing to occupy cities where humans lived. "You took their worlds," Hyejin said. "You sent invasion fleets, and you are surprised they fought back?" "We took nothing," Rena protested. "The council gave us those systems. Legally." "A council they were not truly part of," Hyejin replied. "A council that did not respect them. You wrote laws and then used those laws to steal from newcomers. The humans simply refused to accept your theft." Other species began murmuring. Some agreed with Hyejin. Others did not. The council was dividing, and that was exactly what humanity wanted. For years, the Galactic Council had stayed united because no one could challenge them. The strong species controlled everything. Weaker species obeyed or were destroyed. It was simple, but humans proved the strong could bleed. They showed that technology and tradition were not enough. They demonstrated that will and courage could overcome superior numbers. And across the galaxy, other species noticed. In the Quarren Collective's territory, 6 client species saw the human victory and began whispering about rebellion. They had been serving Quarren masters for centuries. Maybe they did not have to anymore. In neutral space, smaller civilizations watched and wondered, if humans could stand against the council, maybe they could too. Maybe the old order was not as permanent as it seemed. On Earth, Ambassador Jiwan watched the news broadcast with tired eyes. The battle was won, but she felt no joy. People had died. Human people and alien people. This was not what she wanted, but it was necessary. "What happens now?" Taman asked her. "Now?" Jiwan said. "Now we show them we are not conquerors. We are not going to invade their worlds. We simply want to be left alone, to be treated with respect." She paused. "And we show them what happens if they refuse." Admiral Minho received new orders from Earth Command. The orders were clear. Hold defensive positions, but prepare for more action. The Thraxians would not accept defeat. Neither would the Quarren. War was coming. Real war. Not just one battle, but many. Minho had known it would come to this. He had hoped the aliens would be smarter, would understand the message. But pride was a powerful thing. The galactic powers had been strong for so long they could not imagine losing. They were about to learn. Human fleets began moving throughout space, taking positions, preparing defenses. They did not invade alien territory. They simply protected what was theirs. But everyone knew this was just the beginning. Sunwoo was 23 years old and worked as a communications technician on Earth's main broadcast station. His job was usually boring, routing messages, checking signals, making sure transmissions were clear. But today, his job became the most important one in the galaxy. He discovered the files by accident. They were hidden in an old Thraxian database that human intelligence had captured during the battle at New Sol. While checking the data for military information, Sunwoo found something else: communications between the Galactic Council and the Thraxian military from before the summit. His hands shook as he read the messages. The messages showed everything. They showed how the Council planned to humiliate human diplomats. They showed Counselor Rena instructing her people to put the humans in their place. They showed Commander Voth discussing the invasion of human systems weeks before the summit even happened. The Council had never intended to negotiate fairly. They had planned from the beginning to steal human territory and force humanity into servitude. The summit was just a show, a way to make their theft look legal. Sun Wu immediately sent the files to his supervisor. Within an hour, they reached Ambassador Jiwan. Within 2 hours, they were on the desk of Earth's Prime Minister. Within 3 hours, the decision was made: release everything. Sun Wu worked through the night preparing the transmission. He translated the documents into 43 different alien languages. He created clear, simple summaries that anyone could understand. He added audio and video evidence. At dawn, Earth broadcast the truth to the entire galaxy. The response was immediate and explosive. On the Velkan homeworld, Heejin watched the broadcast with growing horror and vindication. She had been right. She had tried to warn them. But even she had not known how deep the conspiracy went. She immediately began making her own broadcasts, using her status as a neutral observer to verify the authenticity of the human evidence. These are real, she told the galaxy. I have examined the files. The council lied. The humans came in peace and they were betrayed. Across the Quarren Collective's territory, client species erupted in protest. For centuries, the Quarren had claimed to be fair and just rulers. They had said their dominance was necessary for galactic peace. But now the truth was clear. They were simply bullies who feared losing power. On the planet Dravik, a species called the Dravi had served the Quarren for 400 years. They were small beings, barely a meter tall, with 4 arms and intelligent eyes. They had always been told they were too weak to govern themselves. But watching the humans fight changed everything. The Dravi leader, an elder named Kona, addressed her people. For centuries we believed we needed the Quarren to survive. But look at the humans. They are new to space. They have fewer ships, yet they won because they refused to be slaves. If they can stand against the Council, why can't we? The Dravi rebellion began peacefully. They simply stopped working. Mines closed. Factories went silent. When Quarren administrators demanded they return to work, the Dravi said no. It was one quiet word, but it shook the collective to its core. On Viridian 7, Councillor Rena faced the Council in emergency session. Species that had always supported the Quarren now questioned their leadership. Smaller species that had been quiet for decades now spoke up with anger. You lied to us, one delegate said. You said the humans were dangerous. You said they rejected peace. But your own files show you rejected peace. You wanted their territory. Rena tried to maintain control. Her cold smile returned, though it looked forced. These files are fabricated. Human propaganda. They are trying to divide us. I verified them, Heejin said, standing. They are real. And before you accuse me of being a human sympathizer, remember that I warned you. Before any of this happened, I told you the humans were dangerous if provoked. You did not listen. The Council dissolved into chaos, species argued. Old alliances cracked. Some delegates walked out. For the first time in 1,000 years, the Galactic Council could not agree on what to do. The Thraxian Empire had its own problems. Commander Voth had been rescued and returned home. He was supposed to be a hero, but instead he was questioned like a criminal. How did you lose 50 ships to humans? The Thraxian High Command demanded. How did their primitive weapons defeat our shields? Voth told them the truth. Their weapons are not primitive. They are different. We prepared for energy weapons. They use kinetic weapons. We expected honor duels and formation battles. They use speed and aggression. He paused. And they were willing to die. Every human ship fought like it was their last battle. The High Command did not want to hear it. They demoted Voth and began planning a larger invasion. They would send 500 ships. They would overwhelm the humans with numbers, but finding 500 ships took time. And in that time, more species left the Council. The Dravi were not alone. 3 other species declared independence from the Quarren Collective. They were small species, not strong enough to fight on their own. But they sent ambassadors to Earth. The ambassadors arrived on a simple transport ship. There were 4 of them, representing 4 different species. They were scared but determined. Ambassador Jiwan met them in a conference room, the same kind of conference room where she had been humiliated at the summit. But this time she made sure her guests felt welcome. The chairs were adjusted to their sizes. Food from their cultures was provided. Translators were ready. The Dravi elder, Kona, spoke first. We have seen what you did. You stood against the Council. You won, we wish to ask. Will you help us? Ji-won was quiet for a moment. Then she said, What kind of help do you need? Protection, Kona replied. The Quarren will try to force us back into service. We are not warriors. We cannot fight them. But we will not be slaves anymore. Another ambassador, a being named Talu from a species called the Morandi, added, We do not ask you to fight for us. We ask only that you show us how to fight for ourselves. Ji-won looked at the four small beings. They had risked everything to come here. If Earth refused them, they would be destroyed. The Quarren would make examples of them. But if Earth helped them, it meant becoming more deeply involved in galactic politics. It meant possibly more war. She thought about what humanity wanted: peace, respect, freedom. Could they ask for those things for themselves but deny them to others? Yes, as Ji-won said. We will help you. The four ambassadors looked like they might cry with relief. Over the next weeks, Earth sent advisors to the newly independent species. They did not send armies. They sent teachers. Human military instructors showed the smaller species how to defend themselves. Human engineers helped them build defensive satellites. Human diplomats taught them how to form alliances with each other. And most importantly, human technicians showed them how to build weapons that could hurt the Council's forces: simple railguns, kinetic missiles, basic but effective tools for defense. The galaxy watched in amazement. Earth was not building an empire. They were building a coalition of free species. Anyone who wanted independence, anyone tired of serving the Council's powers, could find support from humanity. Counselor Rena saw her collective beginning to break apart. Species that had served the Quarren for centuries were leaving. Tax income dropped. Mining operations stopped. The collective's economy was collapsing. She called another emergency council session. This time her voice had lost its sweetness. She sounded desperate. The humans are destroying the galactic order, she said. They are turning our servants against us. They are spreading chaos. We must stop them now before everything falls apart. Perhaps the galactic order deserved to be destroyed, Hyejin said quietly. You built an order based on domination. The strong ruled and the weak obeyed. The humans offered you a better way: partnership, equality, respect. You rejected it. Now you face the consequences. You betray your own kind, Rena hissed. You take the side of these barbarians. I take the side of justice, Hyejin replied. Something you have forgotten. The Thraxian representative stood. Enough talking. The Thraxian Empire will handle the humans. We are assembling a grand fleet. 500 warships. When we strike, humanity will be erased. Species around the council chamber shifted uncomfortably. 500 ships was an enormous force. Could the humans survive such an attack? But some species were thinking different thoughts. They were thinking, if it takes 500 ships to fight the humans, maybe the humans are stronger than we realized. Maybe backing the council is more dangerous than opposing it. On Earth, Admiral Minho received intelligence about the Thraxian Grand Fleet, 500 ships gathering in their home systems. They would need another month to fully assemble and coordinate. 1 month to prepare. Minho gathered his staff. We cannot fight 500 ships in open battle, he said. We do not have enough vessels. Even with our advantages, we would lose. Then what do we do? Captain Daehyun asked. He was at the meeting, having brought his damaged ship back to Earth for repairs. Minho smiled. It was not a nice smile. We do not fight them in open battle. We fight them the way humans have always fought when outnumbered. We adapt, we improvise. We use every advantage we have. He brought up a star map. The Thraxians think in terms of honor and glory. They will bring their entire fleet together, then march on. The Thraxian Grand Fleet assembled in the Carthax system, their home territory. 500 warships filled the space around their military stations. The ships gleamed with fresh armor. Their weapons were charged and ready. The fleet represented the full might of an empire that had dominated this region of space for 3,000 years. High Commander Draxus stood on the bridge of the Eternal Glory, the largest warship ever built by the Thraxian Empire. He was even bigger than Commander Voth, almost 4 meters tall, with scars covering his dark red armor skin. He had led armies for 60 years and never lost a campaign. He looked at the assembled fleet with satisfaction. The humans will learn what happens when primitives challenge their betters, he said. Set course for Earth. We will end this quickly. The fleet began to move. 500 ships entering slipspace together, heading toward human territory. It would take them 5 days to reach Earth. 5 days and then humanity would be crushed. But Admiral Minho was not waiting at Earth. He had split the human fleet into 20 small groups, each with 10 to 15 ships. These groups were scattered across a dozen systems. They did not guard Earth. They did not form defensive lines. Instead, they positioned themselves along the route the Thraxian fleet would take. Captain Daehyun commanded one such group. His ship, the Indomitable, had been repaired and upgraded. Around him were 12 other human vessels and 3 ships from the Dravi, crewed by species learning from humanity. All ships, silent running, Daehyun ordered. Power down everything except life support and sensors. We wait. The ships went dark, floating in space near an asteroid field. They were invisible to long-range scans. 2 days later, the Thraxian fleet passed through the system. They did not even look carefully. Why would they? They were 500 strong. What could threaten them? When the fleet was halfway through the system, Daehyun gave the order. All ships execute ambush pattern alpha. Target their fuel tankers. The human ships powered up and struck. They did not attack the warships. They targeted the logistics vessels, the fuel tankers, the supply ships, the repair vessels that kept the fleet operational. Railguns fired. Missiles launched. In 3 minutes, the humans destroyed 15 support ships and then vanished back into the asteroid field. The Thraxian fleet scrambled to respond, but the humans were already gone, having jumped into slipspace. The warships fired at empty space, destroying only asteroids. High Commander Draxus was furious. Find them, deploy scouts. But the scouts found nothing. The humans had disappeared completely. The next day, it happened again in a different system. Another human group ambushed the fleet, destroyed more supply ships, and vanished. Then it happened a third time, and a fourth. The Thraxian fleet was still overwhelmingly powerful, but each ambush weakened them. Fuel was running low. Supplies were limited. Worse, the constant attacks were making the crews nervous. They could not see the enemy. They could not predict when the next attack would come. "This is not war," Draxus shouted at his officers. "This is cowardice. The humans refuse to face us in honorable battle." His tactical officer, a younger Thraxian named Kresh, spoke carefully. "Commander, perhaps we should reconsider. The humans are not fighting for honor, they are fighting to win." Draxus struck Kresh across the face, sending him sprawling. "We do not retreat. We will reach Earth, and we will make them pay for every ambush." But reaching Earth was becoming difficult. The fleet had to slow down, had to take longer routes, had to constantly scan for ambushes. What should have taken 5 days was taking 8, then 9. And every day more ships were lost. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, the Quarren Collective was facing its own crisis. The rebellion that started with the Dravi had spread to 14 species. The Collective's territory was in chaos. Counselor Rena sent military forces to crush the rebellions. But the rebel species were no longer defenseless. They had human weapons, human training, human advisors. They could not win in open battle, but they could make occupation expensive and difficult. On the Dravi homeworld, Elder Kona stood in a command center built with human help. Around her, young Dravi monitored defensive systems. When Quarren ships approached, the Dravi activated orbital railguns, simple, effective weapons copied from human designs. The Quarren ships had not expected resistance. Several were damaged in the first exchange of fire. They pulled back, shocked. "Send a message to the Quarren commander," Kona said. "Tell them we will fight for every meter of our world. Tell them we are not slaves anymore." The message was broadcast openly, so everyone in the galaxy could hear it. On 100 worlds, oppressed species heard Kona's words and felt hope. On Viridian 7, the Galactic Council was dying. Species were choosing sides. Some supported the Thraxians and Quarren, clinging to the old order. Others supported humanity and the rebels. Many simply declared neutrality and withdrew from the council entirely. Yejin worked tirelessly, documenting everything. She interviewed rebels, recorded battle reports, and broadcast the truth to anyone who would listen. Her message was simple: The old order was built on fear and domination. A new order is being born, built on freedom and respect. Choose wisely which side you support. Some species called her a traitor. Others called her a hero. She did not care. She simply told the truth. Ambassador Jiwan returned to Viridian 7, but not as a supplicant. This time she arrived with an escort of 15 human warships and representatives from 20 independent species. She walked into the council chamber like she owned it. Many of the seats were empty now. The council that once represented 100 species now barely had 40, and most of those looked frightened. Councillor Rena saw Jiwan and stood. "You," she hissed. "You destroyed the Galactic Order. You brought chaos to a stable civilization." Jiwan looked at her calmly. "Your stability was built on the suffering of others. Your order was slavery with a pretty name. We offered you something better. You chose to fight. These are the consequences." Before Rena could respond, news arrived. The Thraxian Grand Fleet had been defeated, not destroyed. Defeated. Admiral Minho had planned carefully. After days of ambushes, the Thraxian fleet was exhausted, low on supplies, and demoralized. When they finally reached human space, expecting to find Earth undefended, they instead found it surrounded by orbital fortresses, minefields, and the entire human home fleet. High Commander Draxus had 3 choices: attack and likely lose, retreat in disgrace, or negotiate. For the first time in his life, Draxus chose to talk. Admiral Minho met him on a neutral station. The meeting was broadcast across the galaxy. Everyone watched as the mighty Thraxian commander sat across from a human. "What are your terms?" Draxus asked. His voice was defeated. Minho did not gloat. "Return to your territory. Acknowledge human independence. Recognize the freedom of all species that wish to leave your empire. Never attack us again." He paused. "Do this and we will let you go home. Refuse and we will destroy every ship you have. You cannot win this war." Draxus knew it was true. His fleet was battered. They were far from home. Even if they won the battle, they would lose the war. "I agree," he said finally. The Thraxian fleet turned around and went home. The greatest military force in the sector, defeated not by superior numbers, but by superior strategy. In the Quarren Collective, Councillor Rena watched the broadcast and knew her power was finished. Species across her territory were openly rebelling. Her military could not stop them all. And now the Thraxians had failed too. She called Jiwan on a private channel. "What do you want?" she asked. The sweetness was gone from her voice. She sounded tired. "Peace," Jiwan said simply. "Real peace. Where all species are equal. Where trade is fair. Where no one is forced to serve against their will." "That kind of peace is impossible," Rena said. "The strong will always dominate the weak. It is nature." "Then we will change nature," Jiwan replied. "We already have." 3 weeks later, a new treaty was signed on Viridian 7. It was called the Accords of Mutual Respect. The terms were clear. All species were equal under the law. No species could claim another's territory without consent. Trade must be voluntary and fair. Any species could leave any alliance at any time. Defensive wars were permitted. Wars of conquest were forbidden. And most importantly, disputes would be resolved through negotiation first, with force only as a last resort. 53 species signed the treaty. The Thraxian Empire signed, though they did so with anger. The Quarren Collective signed, though they lost half their territory. Dozens of smaller species signed with joy, finally free. And humanity signed, having never wanted anything else. Ambassador Jiwan stood at the signing ceremony. She thought about the first summit, where she had been humiliated and dismissed. She thought about the war that followed, the lives lost, the suffering caused. "Was it worth it?" Taman asked her quietly. He stood beside her, no longer just an assistant but a full diplomat himself. Jiwan was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, "We tried to do this without violence. They refused. So yes, It was worth it. Because now, when the next species joins, the galactic community, they will be treated with respect. They will not have to fight for basic dignity. We paid that price so they would not have to. At the ceremony, Heejin gave a speech. For thousands of years, the galaxy was ruled by fear, she said. The strong took what they wanted. Captain Daehyun stood on the bridge of the ESS Indomitable, watching the stars stream past. His ship was one of Earth's largest military vessels, but compared to alien warships, it looked small and simple. The hull was gray metal. The weapons were visible on the outside, missile tubes and railguns, nothing fancy or hidden. He received the message from Ambassador Jiwon 2 hours after she left the summit. The message was short. Negotiations have failed. Begin protocol exodus. Daehyun had hoped it would not come to this. He was a career military officer, 45 years old with 20 years of service. He had fought in Earth's last war before humanity reached the stars. He knew what war meant. He knew the cost, but he also knew when peace was no longer possible. Attention all hands, he said into the ship-wide communication system. This is the captain. We are implementing protocol exodus. This is not a drill. All personnel to stations. Around him, the bridge crew moved quickly. His first officer, a woman named Yoonji, brought up star maps on the main screen. Sir, we have 17 colonies in the contested zones, she said. Total population, 3,400,000. How fast can we evacuate non-essential personnel? Daehyun asked. If we use every transport ship we have, 72 hours minimum, Yoonji replied. But sir, the Thraxians will notice. They will ask questions. Let them ask, Daehyun said quietly. We are not answering anymore. Across human space, other captains received the same orders. In the Kepler 442 system, Commander Yuna began loading civilian transports with families and children. In the Ross 128 colony, Colonel Jeho activated the defensive satellites that had been quietly placed in orbit over the past year. The aliens had thought humans were weak because their technology looked simple. They did not understand that humans built things to last, to work, to survive. Human ships did not have elegant designs or beautiful colors. They were practical. Ugly, some aliens said. But they were strong. Earth's government had planned for this possibility. After first contact, after meeting the Galactic Council, Earth's leaders understood the truth. The galaxy was not kind to newcomers. Species survived by being strong or by being useful to stronger species. Earth refused to be anyone's servant. So they had prepared. While diplomats spoke softly at summits, engineers back home built weapons. Scientists developed new technologies. Military strategists studied every alien species, learning their strengths and weaknesses. And they waited. On Viridian 7 Station, the Galactic Council was in chaos. News of the human walkout spread quickly. Commander Voth was angry. He sent messages to his fleet ordering them to watch human ships. Counselor Rena called an emergency session. The humans are cowards, Voth announced to the council. They run because they know they cannot stand against us. I propose we accelerate our colonization of human territory. They have abandoned their claim by walking away. Most of the council members agreed. The humans had seemed so desperate for acceptance, so eager to please. Now they were leaving? It proved they were weak, but Heejin stood up. Her silver skin seemed to glow under the station's lights. With respect, Commander, I think you are wrong, she said. Her voice was gentle but firm. I have studied human history. I have read their books and watched their entertainment. I have spoken with their diplomats. And what did you learn? Rena asked mockingly. That they are friendly? That they want peace? We saw that and we rejected it. They have nothing we need. I learned that humans are survivors, Heejin said. Their planet tried to kill them for millions of years. Predators hunted them. Diseases killed them. Weather destroyed their homes. But they survived everything. They did not survive by being weak, Voth laughed. One small planet's dangers are nothing compared to galactic power. Perhaps, Heejin said. But answer me this. Why did they come here with only small ships? Why did their proposals focus on trade and culture, not military might? Why did they seem so eager to please? The room was quiet for a moment. Because they are weak, Voth said, but he sounded less certain. Or because they were testing us, Hyojin replied. Testing to see if we could be trusted. Testing to see if we would treat them fairly. She paused. We failed that test. Ridiculous, Rena said. You give them too much credit, Hyejin. They are children in the galactic community. Then why am I afraid? Hyejin asked quietly. No one had an answer. Over the next 3 days, human colonies emptied. Massive transport ships moving in organized convoys carried millions of people away from border worlds. They moved deeper into human-controlled space, to systems the aliens had not yet claimed. The Thraxian fleet watched but did nothing. Voth thought it was good. The humans were leaving without a fight. It would make occupation easier. He did not notice the small satellites that human ships left behind. He did not see the sensors that were planted on asteroids and moons. He did not understand that humans were not running. They were removing civilians from a battlefield. On the 4th day, Thraxian ships entered human territory. They went to the 3 systems the Council had given them. They expected to find abandoned colonies, empty buildings, maybe some scared humans who refused to leave. Instead, they found mines. Not the kind that exploded. Information mines. Sensor networks. The moment Thraxian ships crossed into the systems, every human ship in nearby space knew exactly where they were, how many they were, and what weapons they carried. Admiral Minho sat in the command center deep inside Earth's moon. He watched the displays as enemy positions lit up like candles in the dark. They are not even being careful, he said to his staff. They think we are beaten already. Minho was 60 years old. He had gray hair and hard eyes. He had commanded Earth's defense forces for 10 years. He had spent those 10 years preparing for this exact moment. Sir, shall we engage? His tactical officer asked. Not yet, Minho said. Let them get comfortable. Let them spread out. Let them think they have already won. The Thraxian fleet split up, with groups going to each of the 3 systems. They began scanning planets, checking resources, making plans for colonization. Some ships even powered down their weapons, thinking there was no threat. Commander Voth sent a message to the Galactic Council. Human systems secured. No resistance encountered. They are as weak as we thought. Rena replied, Excellent. The Quarren will send administrators to establish our trade posts in human space. This will be profitable for us. Back on Viridian 7, Hyejin sat alone in her quarters. She could not shake the feeling of dread. She had tried to warn them, but no one listened. The Council was too proud, too certain of their superiority. She pulled up human communication networks, trying to find news from Earth. But there was nothing. Human broadcasts had gone silent. Their public networks were shut down. It was as if humanity had simply disappeared. That scared her more than anything. On Earth, in cities and towns across the planet, people went about their lives. But there was a tension in the air. Everyone knew what was happening. The news showed images of returning colonists, of transport ships landing, of families reuniting, and everyone knew what would come next. In schools, teachers explained to children that humanity had tried to make friends. They had offered peace. But sometimes the lesson said you have to fight for respect. In military bases, soldiers prepared. They checked equipment, ran drills, and said goodbye to loved ones. They did not know when they would be called, but they knew it would be soon. Ambassador Jiwan stood in the Earth government building, looking at a wall of screens. Each screen showed a different alien news broadcast. The Thraxians were celebrating their easy victory. The Quarren were discussing trade profits. Other species were already asking if they could claim human colonies too. Beside her stood Taemin, her assistant from the summit. They think it is over, he said quietly. Let them think that, Jiwan replied. We tried to warn them. We tried to show them we could be partners. They chose to make us enemies. Do you think we can win? Taemin asked. Jiwan was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, We do not have to win. We just have to make sure they understand what it cost to treat us like slaves. Far above Earth, human warships gathered. They had been hidden for years, waiting in the dark spaces between planets. They were not beautiful ships. They were not elegant. They were covered in weapons and armor. They looked dangerous because they were dangerous, and they were ready. Captain Daehyun received new orders. Just 2 words, stand by, he smiled. The waiting was almost over.